December 26, 1944. The phone rang at Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force in Versailles. General Dwight D. Eisenhower reached for the receiver, his hand steady despite the weight of 10 days that had nearly broken the Allied war effort. On the other end, George S. Patton delivered 4 words that would echo through military history. "We're through to Bastogne." Eisenhower had been expecting this call, but not for another 3 or 4 days. Not through a blizzard that had grounded Allied aircraft and turned roads into frozen nightmares. Not after the impossible 90-degree pivot that every logistics officer said couldn't be done. Not in time, not in winter, not while fighting a determined enemy. For once, Patton had actually kept his word and done the impossible. What Eisenhower said in that moment, and in the hours and days that followed, revealed everything about their complicated relationship, about the turning point of the Battle of the Bulge, and about what happens when difficult genius delivers against all odds. This is the story of that phone call and the words that followed. Words of relief, gratitude, frustration, and begrudging admiration that defined one of the war's most critical moments. But to understand what that phone call meant, we have to go back 7 days earlier, to December 19th, 1944, to an emergency meeting at Verdun that would become legendary in military circles. German forces had smashed through thinly held American lines in the Ardennes forest, creating a massive bulge in Allied defenses that threatened to split the entire front. The 101st Airborne Division, those elite paratroopers who had jumped into Normandy on D-Day, was now surrounded at Bastogne, a critical road junction in Belgium. If Bastogne fell, German armored columns could potentially reach the Meuse River, drive to the coast, and split the Allied armies in two. The entire European campaign hung in the balance. Eisenhower convened his top commanders to coordinate the response. The atmosphere in that conference room was grim, tense, suffocating under the weight of potential disaster. This was the largest German offensive since the Blitzkrieg of 1940, and it had caught Allied forces completely by surprise. Commanders around the table reported chaos, disorganized retreats, units scattered and cut off, uncertainty about German objectives and capabilities. Some divisions had simply ceased to exist as coherent fighting forces. The Germans had achieved total tactical surprise, and now American boys were dying in frozen foxholes, surrounded, outgunned, wondering if anyone was coming to save them. Then Eisenhower asked the critical question that would define the entire conference. How soon can you attack north to relieve Bastogne? Most generals hesitated, their minds calculating logistics, troop movements, supply lines, the complexity of disengaging from current positions and reorienting entire divisions. Winter warfare was a nightmare. Roads were ice. Visibility was zero. Moving armies in these conditions took time, careful planning, coordination that couldn't be rushed. Then Patton spoke up. December 22nd, he said. 3 divisions. I'll attack on December 22nd with 3 divisions. The room went silent. Other commanders exchanged glances, some skeptical, others openly incredulous. They thought Patton was grandstanding again, making bold promises he couldn't keep, trying to steal glory as he always did. The man's ego was legendary, after all. But what Patton was proposing was operationally insane. To disengage 3 full divisions from active combat in the Saar region, rotate them 90 degrees, move them over 100 miles through the worst winter conditions in decades, and launch a coordinated attack in just 72 hours. It was impossible, Military doctrine said it couldn't be done. Logistics experts would say it couldn't be done. History said it couldn't be done. Eisenhower's reaction was carefully controlled, measured, revealing nothing of the turmoil beneath. He knew Patton's reputation for making bold promises he couldn't always keep. The man had a history of exaggeration, of letting his mouth write checks his army had to cash. But Eisenhower also knew something else. Patton was his best hope, possibly his only hope, of saving those paratroopers before they were overrun and annihilated. According to multiple witnesses in that room, Eisenhower leaned forward across the table and spoke quietly, but with unmistakable firmness. "George, I want you to understand something. The 101st Airborne is completely surrounded. They're low on ammunition, medical supplies, food. If they're overrun, it's not just a tactical defeat. It's a catastrophe militarily and for American morale. When you say December 22nd, do you actually mean that, or are you being optimistic?" Patton met Eisenhower's eyes without flinching. "Ike, I've already done the planning. My staff has 3 contingency plans prepared and ready to execute. I anticipated this meeting before you even called it. On December 22nd, my 4th Armored Division will attack north toward Bastogne. I stake my entire career on it." Eisenhower considered this carefully. Patton had actually prepared for this scenario before the Germans even attacked, a level of foresight and initiative that even Eisenhower hadn't expected from his most unpredictable commander. But could Patton actually execute? Could he turn preparation into reality under the worst possible conditions? Eisenhower made his decision. "All right, George, you've got your chance. But understand something clearly. If you can't deliver this, if those paratroopers are lost because you promised what you couldn't achieve, there will be consequences. No more second chances. No more controversies swept under the rug because you're useful. This is it." Patton nodded once, sharply. "I'll be there, Ike. Count on it." After the meeting broke up, Eisenhower pulled his chief of staff, General Walter Bedell Smith, aside into a private room. Smith later recorded the conversation in his diary. "The boss said he was taking a huge gamble on George," Smith wrote. "If Patton failed, both their careers might be over. The press would crucify them. The politicians would demand heads. But Ike believed, maybe for the first time in their long and complicated relationship, that George would actually follow through. The stakes were high enough that even Patton wouldn't dare exaggerate or overreach." Over the next 72 hours, Eisenhower received regular updates on Third Army's movements. The reports were almost unbelievable, bordering on miraculous. Patton's forces were actually doing it. Divisions were disengaging from combat. Vehicles were rolling north through snow and ice. Units were repositioning for the attack. The Third Army was executing one of the most complex military maneuvers of the entire war, and they were doing it at speed that defied doctrine. By December 21st, Eisenhower allowed himself cautious optimism. Patton might actually pull this off. The attack launched on December 22nd, exactly as promised. But breaking through German lines was another matter entirely. The Germans knew Bastogne's importance and had positioned strong defensive forces to prevent relief. Patton's columns met fierce resistance. Progress was measured in yards, not miles. Each farm, each crossroads, each frozen hill became a battlefield. Days passed. December 23rd, 24th, 25th. Still fighting. Still pushing. Still dying. Eisenhower waited, receiving updates every few hours, watching the map as Patton's spearheads inched closer to the surrounded garrison. The 101st Airborne was running out of everything. Medical supplies exhausted, ammunition critically low, food reduced to scraps. They were holding, but barely. Then came December 26th, approximately 4:45 in the afternoon. Eisenhower was in his office at SHAEF, headquarters in Versailles, reviewing situation reports from across the Ardennes front. The Battle of the Bulge was entering its second week. American forces had stabilized the northern shoulder of the German penetration, but the situation remained critical, balanced on a knife's edge. Bastogne was still surrounded, though somehow the 101st Airborne continued holding against impossible odds. His phone rang. The duty officer's voice came through. "General Patton, calling from Luxembourg, sir." Eisenhower picked up immediately. "George." "Ike, we're through to Bastogne." The 4th Armored made contact with the 101st at 4:50 this afternoon. "The corridor is narrow, vulnerable, but it's open. We're pushing supplies through right now." There was a pause, a moment suspended in time. Multiple witnesses in Eisenhower's office that afternoon recorded what happened next. First, visible relief washed over the Supreme Commander's face. His shoulders dropped, tension releasing like a spring unwinding. Then something unexpected occurred, something these hardened staff officers rarely saw. Eisenhower's eyes became moist, glistening with emotion he couldn't quite contain. He turned away from his staff for a moment, composing himself, gathering his voice. "George, say that again. You're through?" "Confirmed, Ike. Captain William Dwight's company from the 37th Tank Battalion made first contact with paratroopers from the 101st. They're battered, exhausted, but they're holding. We're reinforcing the corridor now, pushing more units through, widening the gap." Eisenhower's voice when he spoke was thick with emotion that he didn't try to hide. "George, I congratulate you. You did it. You actually did it." Then, more firmly, the commander reasserting control. "How secure is that corridor?" Patton's response was characteristically confident, bordering on cocky. "German counterattacks are hitting us hard, but we're holding them off. I'm pushing more units through the corridor every hour. By tomorrow morning, Bastogne will be secure. I guarantee it." After a brief tactical discussion about troop dispositions and supply priorities, Eisenhower ended the call. He sat for a moment in complete silence, the phone still in his hand, processing what had just happened. Then he turned to his assembled staff officers, men who had seen him through 2 years of war. General Smith recorded Eisenhower's exact words in his diary that night. "Gentlemen, George Patton has just accomplished something I wasn't entirely sure was possible. He promised December 22nd, and he delivered December 26th. Given the weather, the conditions, the enemy resistance, that's close enough to miraculous. I want everyone in this room to understand what just happened." Third Army moved over 100 miles through a blizzard, rotated 90 degrees, and broke through prepared German defenses in 4 days. 4 days. Then Eisenhower did something his staff rarely witnessed. He smiled broadly, genuinely, relief and pride mixing together. "Get me a message to the 101st Airborne immediately. Tell them relief has arrived. Tell them they held when it mattered most. And send my personal congratulations to General Patton and every soldier in Third Army. They've just changed the entire complexion of this battle. They may have just saved the entire campaign. Within hours of Patton's breakthrough, Eisenhower faced new decisions about public messaging and propaganda. The Battle of the Bulge had created genuine panic back in the United States. Newspapers speculated wildly about German victory, potential Allied collapse, whether American forces were even capable of stopping the Wehrmacht anymore. Bastogne's relief was the first genuinely good news since the offensive began, and Eisenhower knew how to use it. His public statement, released on December 27th, was carefully crafted for maximum morale impact. Units of Lieutenant General George S. Patton's Third Army have successfully broken through to relieve American forces surrounded at Bastogne. This operation, executed under extremely difficult winter conditions and against determined enemy resistance, demonstrates the fighting quality of American soldiers and the operational excellence of their commanders. The defenders of Bastogne displayed extraordinary courage and determination. Their relief by Third Army forces marks a turning point in repelling the German offensive. The statement was diplomatic, balanced, praising both the 101st Airborne's heroic defense and Third Army's dramatic relief operation. But those close to Eisenhower noted what he said privately was far more revealing of his true feelings. To British Field Marshal Montgomery, who was coordinating Allied response on the northern shoulder of the Bulge, Eisenhower wrote a personal letter. Patton's performance in relieving Bastogne was exceptional, truly exceptional. The speed with which he pivoted his entire army and launched a coordinated attack exceeded my expectations, and I suspect it exceeded German expectations as well. We may have George's foresight to thank for preventing a catastrophic defeat. To General Omar Bradley, Patton's immediate superior and longtime friend, Eisenhower was more candid and emotional. George delivered when it mattered most, he wrote. Whatever frustrations I've had with his behavior, his insubordination, his controversies and ego, this operation justifies my decision to keep him in command despite enormous political pressure. He did what no other general in this army could have done. I'm convinced of that now. But Eisenhower also sent a personal note directly to Patton, and this message revealed the full complexity of their relationship, the balance between admiration and exasperation. George, congratulations on a brilliant operation, brilliantly executed. Your planning, your army's execution, and your personal leadership made the crucial difference. I am genuinely proud of what Third Army accomplished under your command. However, I want to be absolutely clear about something. This does not erase previous issues or give license for future insubordination. You've proven what you can accomplish when you follow orders and work within the command structure. Continue doing exactly that, and there's no limit to what you can achieve. Revert to your old habits, and even Bastogne won't save you. The message was pure Eisenhower. Genuine praise combined with firm boundaries. He wanted Patton to understand that success didn't excuse everything, that brilliance didn't grant unlimited freedom. In the days and weeks following Bastogne's relief, Eisenhower's private diary entries and letters revealed his deepest thoughts about Patton and the operation. These weren't public statements crafted for morale. They were honest reflections on command, leadership, and the burden of managing difficult subordinates who happened to be military geniuses. On December 28, Eisenhower wrote to his wife Mamie, "Patton has done something truly remarkable," he confessed. "I've spent so much time being frustrated with George, his ego, his endless controversies, his insubordination, that I sometimes forget exactly why I keep him in command, despite everything. Bastogne reminded me forcefully. When the stakes are highest, when the situation seems completely impossible, George delivers miracles. I honestly don't know if any other general could have done what he did. That's simultaneously reassuring and deeply concerning. Am I too dependent on one difficult man? The relief of Bastogne permanently changed how Eisenhower viewed and managed Patton for the remainder of the war. It established a new equilibrium in their relationship, one based on proven capability rather than potential, on demonstrated results rather than promised performance. Patton had earned credibility that would last until victory.